Alright, second video. What am I going to talk about next?
No, not that! Anything but that!
There is a house in New Orleans called the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. A guy that knows I'm one. My mother was.
So, this video is not going to be fun at all for me to talk about. Something tells me no matter what my position is, I'm going to get flack on both sides. But I do feel like this does need to be discussed. Former Star Trek actor George Takei, also known as Mr. Sulu, got accused of sexual harassment by a former actor and model known as Scott R. Burton. According to Scott, he accused Takei of groping his crotch and trying to get his underwear off while he was passed out at the star's home. He said that he pushed Takei off and left his house. He also claimed to have met Takei for coffee years later, but he didn't discuss the incident. George Takei did not take very kind to this. He said in a Twitter feed, "I'm writing this to respond to the accusations made by Scott R. Burton. I want to assure you all that I am shocked and bewildered at these claims, as you may feel about reading them. The events he described back in the 1980s simply did not occur, and I do not know why he claimed them now. I have racked my brain to ask if I remember Mr. Burton, and I cannot say I do." He then said, "But I do take these claims very seriously, and I wanted to provide my response thoroughly and not out of the moment." But he also said that the situation that Scott claims to have occurred nearly 40 years ago, but those that understand me know that non-consensual acts are so antithetical to my practices and my values. The very idea that someone will accuse me of this is quite personally painful. Here is my big issue with the whole thing. If I Stand With Jackie and Tobuscus and Gamergate have taught me anything, it's that things are not always as they appear, and sometimes it is very, very good to hold your opinions until further evidence is shown. Here's my problem. The fact that this seems to have occurred after what seems to be a complete House of Cards debacle of a scandal makes me kind of suspicious. I mean, whenever the skeptics and people who were on the more conservative side of the political scale started reading all of these different accusations that started popping up on Twitter, we were told that we shouldn't necessarily listen and believe. And in many cases, it turned out they were right. Accusations occurred, but no further evidence was given forth. Just look at what happened to, again, the thing that went on with Tobuscus. And what bothers me the most about this is why now? Whenever the thing with Weinstein first occurred and then the Me Too hashtag started popping up, I predicted from the very beginning that something like this was going to happen. And I get it. I get why. I get Weinstein. You know, the man started making comments about how he had openly groped women, how he, you know, had no issue with that kind of thing, and then whenever he gets caught, he flees the country and then claims to have gone into sexual therapy just to blow it off. But now we're getting to the point where people are getting accused of things like sideways glances, uncomfortable touching, and, in the case of C.K. Lewis, masturbating in front of several women even after giving them plenty of notice. But none of it's rape. And yet it's getting plastered all over the news boards like all these different people are getting accused of the most horrible sexual crimes, and it's just not. Whatever happened to don't be so quick to listen and believe. Make sure that, the proper evidence gets presented before accusations start flying and potential careers get ruined. I get why this is occurring. The left for a very long time has basically championed themselves as the women's rights, women's lib group, all while accusing conservatives of being these horrible, racist, sexist pigs. And so whenever something like this pops up, there's something that feels sweet about this. There's something that feels sweet about giving them a taste of their own medicine. But that still doesn't make it right. People like me, from the time Gamergate started and the feminist SJWs really started coming out in full force, we were against this kind of thing even when, they started doing it. And there were plenty of... I remember during the election, whenever Trump made those locker room talks, that there were people who said that the left needed to stop harping on Trump and sidestepping the issues and ignoring the fact that Hillary was a bad candidate. And, I mean, what's changed now, aside from the fact that, now the tides have turned and the enemy is on the ropes? Especially considering the fact that these actions have occurred over 30 years ago, there's dangerous and unfortunate implications due to this. What happens if you are a wild college person and you have an encounter with someone and, they regret it 20 years later and then go out in front of the media and then accuse you of quote-unquote assaulting them? Your career is down the toilet and your reputation is positively ruined. Is that something that we really want to risk? Is that really the rabbit hole we want to go down in? And I know that people are going to hate me for saying this, but waiting 20 or 30 years to report a sexual crime and only doing it after something like a Me Too hashtag comes around, that is extremely shady to me. Or at least it sounds that way. Because what almost sounds like to me is that people are doing it to get attention. I hope that's not the case. I would like to think that's not the case, but that's the way it sounds. Now, that being said, I couldn't find the tweet, but going through Twitter, I almost promise you I can remember George Takei sending some sort of tweet mocking people who were skeptical of this kind of scandal, and he said something along the lines of, and people wonder why women are so nervous about reporting, sexual assault crimes. Well, have you seen the way people reacted to them? I can't find that tweet. Maybe it was just my imagination, but it is definitely something I've heard, from notable figures on the left, if nothing else. And all I gotta say to that is, now, Mr. Sulu, do you understand why people like me are so skeptical of this kind of thing? Whenever people wait so long to report the potential or non-rape crimes to the newspaper for all to see and throw a witch hunt at you, it's not a comfortable feeling. And whenever you allow this kind of listen and believe mentality, you've got to realize that at some point it can happen to you, especially whenever you're dealing with a action that occurred so long ago. And frankly, Mr. Sulu, I want you to have your day in court. If you're innocent, I want you to be able to, I want you to have the chance to defend yourself without the risk of your career going down the toilet. And if you are guilty, I want the proof of your actions and the courts of justice to give the justice needed. I don't want to see America go down this witch trial mentality. And it's something that is very, very easy to do, especially if it's somebody that's close to you. But I believe that everyone who is a citizen of the United States deserves to have their day in court. I believe it should be up to the long arm of the law and the courts of justice to bring proper retribution to the guilty, not the mob justice. And I know that at some point, if we continue down this listen and believe mentality, innocent people are going to be hurt. It's happened before. It happened during the Salem witch trials. It happened during the French Revolution. It happened during Gamergate, for crying out loud. And for those who have been sexually assaulted, please, I encourage you, report it as soon as possible. The longer you wait, one, the more you make yourself sound like a shady person. But two, the longer and more likely you risk for your rapist to do it again to someone else. In the case of Weinstein, how many women did he coerce until someone finally stood up to him? How many of those things could have been prevented had it occurred earlier? And to those of us that were skeptical during the rise of the SJWs, we still need to hold that same skepticism until proper evidence is shown. Because if we fall into that same listen and believe mentality just because the accused is someone we don't ideologically agree with, we're not much better than hypocrites. And I know that's something that is hard to do. I'm not perfect at it myself, but it's still something that needs to be done. Please, again, to all those who are victims, I strongly wish and strongly encourage for you to report these things. It's not easy. I know it's not. I know there's risk. But I know plenty of sexual assault victims. A few of them are not going to get justice because the people that did are long dead. But that doesn't have to be you. But you have to act as soon as you possibly can. I know this video is short. I know it's not well organized. I apologize for being a little disjointed. This wasn't an easy video for me to make. I'm still trying to get my footholding on this, but for those who haven't shut me down, thank you for listening. Have a good day, and remember, reject false icons. Thank you.